All right, we are back in the booth after a couple month hiatus. I just had gotten so busy at work, I didn't have a lot of time to do videos. So it's Memorial Day weekend and I'm off. I thought I'd just start back up. The lure that I'm going to be doing today is going to be an Evoke Magnum 4.0, and I'm going to do it in a gizzard shad pattern that I like to use. So let's get started. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and do a little detail work with it, and we're going to use some because I'm going to be using all solvent base on this lure here today, and this is House of Color Jet Black. And I'm just going to do a little bit of detail. I'll be spraying on about 15 pounds of pressure. Get the gun loaded here. See if that'll do it. I'm going to take the Gerald Mendez texture stencil to do this. We'll cut our fan on. Spraying on about 15 pounds of pressure. I'm going to lock my stand down. I get a lot of questions about the old stand even to this day off the videos. I got it off of Amazon. It is a kind of a large fly tying vise. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up and I'm just going to start running down it just to give it some texture. It doesn't have to be really dark black. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with it. I am going to darken the eye up. And I have this kill dot stencil from Lure Build that I've been using for quite a while. I'm going to go ahead and put a kill dot on this. I'm going to use the bigger side. I always keep tape on it so that the overspray just doesn't bleed through to it. So we'll just set it up here. You know, it's got actually contoured gill plate, so you can actually set your stencil up and just kind of line it up the way you want it. And I go about midway, and then I'll just get my kill dot on there. We'll let that dry. We'll darken this up just a little bit. Okay. I'll tell you what, we can go ahead and do the fin we're going to use. And this is a Whitmore Farm fin stencil. We've got a lot of different ones on it. I think I'm going to use a, let's see. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put a fin on this one. And I think I'm just going to do just an outline of one, just to kind of do something different. And all you want to do is just kind of find you a point, line it up. And on this one, all I'm going to do is go to the outside. Just kind of give it a shadow of a fin, just like that. Kind of got a little loose there, but that's all right. And then we'll go ahead and put a little bit of just use the little larger model stencil. And just a little tip on that. I cut these stencils, you know, they'll have a thick end, and then I cut one down so I can actually butt it up, and that usually helps a lot. So we'll leave that like that, and we'll go ahead and flip this over. I'm not going to spray the top of the bait black. I'm not using a color shift in this one, so I'm going to actually put my color of choice on there, which is going to be a green. So let me flip this around, and we will do this other side. And after you get, if you have one of these stands, after you use it and get it for a little while, I mean, you can just flip it around and spray it. You don't even have to spray it the same way. You can get really used to it. Just slide it over, keep it, you can keep it as high as you want it. Get dry. Let's go ahead and flip this over. Get our kill dot. Like I said, all you're doing is lining it up on the gill in the middle. And there you go. And we'll go ahead and take our larger modeled stencil and just do a little detailed work on them. They always have these dots and stuff all over their face, and usually by their gill plate, so it kind of gives it a more lifelike look. And we'll let that dry for a second and we'll switch guns. All right, so what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna put a little bit of texture on the sides, and I'm gonna be using some silver white pearl, house of color, and we're going to use the Gerald Mendez stencil just to kind of break up the texture of the scale in the side of the bait. So we'll get a little bit of this in the gun real quick, shake it up. I hadn't used these in a while. I just really started painting a little bit posting again. I've just been so busy at work. It's not that I didn't want to paint, but sometimes it's good to take a break. Gets my creativity going back in the right direction. I appreciate all the messages everybody sent me concerned. I was actually okay, just had a lot going on at work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I like to use the smaller pieces of this stencil for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit some of the white. I don't want to get it up in the black areas. And you can see it kind of just gives it a little bit of texture. I'm not going to get it on my fin. Get a little bit down here on the belly. And that's good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to use, well, I'll wait. I'll have to do that after the fact. I want to get my green on the top because I don't want to cover up my scales. So let me slide this around. And I'll spin the lure handle, and we'll just come to this side and just hit the open areas. Try to get these smaller sections in there. This just gives it some really cool detail. Doesn't have to be a whole lot, but it does make a difference, especially after when you get done with the finished product. And I'm gonna put a little bit on these gills, kind of give it a little sheen. It's a pretty cool pattern to catch fish with. And you can still see the stencil work that you did. So let me change paints and we'll be right back. All right, so I've got some loaded up Show Me the Money green. It's a custom paint from TCP Global. And we're gonna do the top in that. Green is one of my favorite colors to catch fish on. This one is actually gonna be mine. I'll let it bleed down a little bit on the sides. Good thing about these paints is they dry very quickly, very fast. Put a little bit up here on the nose. Kind of let it blend on down with what I've already done. You don't need a lot of this paint either. It covers really well, has a great color, and does a great job. So let me change paints and we'll put on some scales and we'll go from there. All right, so I've gone back to the silver white and we're gonna do some scales on this. And the stencil that I'm actually gonna use is actually the tips only scale from Anarchy. It's kind of a really cool stencil. It just shows the tips only, so I'm gonna lock it down. I don't have a lot on this side to do with this, so you're not gonna kind of run it down into the white. It's gonna be pretty much on the dark areas only, just here on the shoulders, as I call it. And you can see them there, and the way this bait is designed, you can see what it did. It actually turned out pretty cool. It'll just show the tips of the stencil, and it'll leave the top alone, where you're not, you know, affecting the color on the top of the bait. Just a little bit of tip scale, just for some detail. I'm going to turn this thing up a little bit, and we'll do the same thing again. You just want to make sure your stencil's dry, and flip it over, and we'll start down here and run it up. And it gives it a unique stencil look for your bait. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry, and I'll heat set that off, and I'll be right back. All right, so this is what's gonna give it the pop now. This is some ice pearl green particles, and it's ready to spray, and I'm gonna cover the entire bait with it. And then we'll put some eyes in it, and then I'll put a coat of UV resin on it, but I'll explain the process all over again. So we're gonna go over the whole entire bait with this. This is what's gonna give it that, it's gonna give it that scale sparkle. It's just gonna set the bait off. You're gonna wanna put this on heavy. And you can spray this on a little bit higher pressure because it does have glitter sparkles in it, and it will jam your gun up. As you can tell, my compressor's kicking on. I mean, I just douse it. It just has, I've caught a lot of fish on this color, and it just glistens in the water very good, especially if the water's a little bit clear, which my lake is right now. This will make your scales and a little bit of detail with the silver white pop on the side, especially this green on top. Most everybody does have threadfin shad or gizzard shad in their lakes, and this is just a killer for spots or largemouth. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry, then we'll come back and get the eyes on. All right, so what I'm gonna do real quick is we're gonna put these eyes on, and these are some big pupil eyes, just a big pupil on them. I just think they look better on a shad bait. These are self-adhesive. They're 7mm. let those stick pretty good. I'll take the bait off and show it to you. It actually turned out really cool. And what we'll do now is I'm gonna get a coat of UVLS over top of this and let it dry, because it tends to work better for me, especially since I use some of these solvent-based paints. If I'll take the UVLS and spray it over it and let it dry real good, I don't have any blistering when I do my resin. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some UVLS in a cup, and I'm going to reduce it about 10%. You want to put some in, it's too thick. And then I will stir that up. We'll let this sit for just a minute, and I'll come back and spray it, and then I'll go over everything that we did. All right, so we've let the UVLS sit just for about 15 minutes, and now I'm gonna put some in the gun, and I'm gonna go over the entire bait, even the bill. I'm spraying this with my clips, and you can see once you start hitting this on there, it starts bringing the colors on out. Really makes it look really good. So we're gonna let that dry, and then I'll come back and we'll go over everything. All right, so it's starting to dry. We're gonna set that to the side, and we're just gonna go over what we actually did on the bait. Like I said, every paint that I used in this one, you could just use other paints, whether it's golden, Createx, Wicked, SMS, whatever you got. Don't think that you got to use these paints to get this effect, because it's not the case. You can use other stuff. So what we did first was we took the Evoke 4.0 body, which is it's a Magnum square bill, which I love square bill fishing, and we painted it with just a bright white. Just use the bright white of your choice, whichever one you'd like. Then we came back with the Gerald Mendez stencil and just use a black of your choice. If you use golden black, wicked black, whatever the case may be, it'll do the same thing. And we just outlined the shoulders with it to kind of give it some texture, and did that on both sides. Then we took the Kill Dot stencil from Lure Build, which you can get this at Jimmy's website, lurebuild.com. Jimmy's got a lot of great stencils. Then we took an Anarchy stencil. This is the larger model. You can actually see the holes pretty good in this one. And I went around the gill plates on both sides of this to kind of just give it a little bit of texture on there. Then we took some silver white pearl, which you could just use silver in this case if you got it, or aluminum, whatever color paint you have. We took the Gerald Mendez stencil again and just kind of went over the white areas. We didn't go up into the black, and just kind of gave it a busted up scale. Most bait fish have that busted up scale look. And then we took the tips only stencil from Anarchy, which is a very cool stencil, and it does, I just did just to give it a little bit of detail on the shoulders, I put some scale pattern, just the tips on both sides. Kind of left it gives it a kind of a unique look. Then we took some custom paint that I had from TCP, any green you could use, or whatever color, you can use any of it. You can use black for that matter. I like green because that's what I catch fish on, so I used that, and I just covered the top. Did a little bit on the nose to carry it around to kind of tie in with the top. We did use some of this jet black. I forgot this. We used the Whitmore Farm fin stencil. That's my go-to. They're great stencils. Go check him out at whitmorefarm.com. He does a great job with stencils also. And we did those fin patterns on there. Then we took some silver, went around the gill plates there on both sides, and kind of finished it up. Then we took some UVLS. I like the shiny UVLS best. Mixed it with 10% reducer, and that is 4011. And then we just took some big pupil eyes. I mean, you can get them anywhere, really. Amazon, I'm sure Jimmy's got them. And just, you know, use the eyes. I like the big pupil eye on a shad bait. Oh, I just think it looks better. It has more realism to it when you have those on there. So what we're going to do now is I'm still going to let this dry for just a little while. Then I'll come back, I'll put the resin on it, and then I'll show you the finished product. I did forget one step, guys. It was covering the whole bait. This is probably one of the most important things. This is kind of like what Hot Rod Sparkle would be on the Wicked line, but this is a difference maker on these baits. And you'll really be able to see it once I get the top coat in, but we're going to let this dry just a little bit longer. I forgot to throw that in. You can tell I ain't done a video in a while, so I'm trying to get back into this, and I'm sorry. And then we'll get some UV resin on this, and we'll look at the finished product. All right, so we are ready to put some UV resin on. And I use Illuma UV. There's a lot out there. You don't have to use Illuma. You can use whatever that it is you use. And for those new to the channel, you can actually use the same brush over and over and over. You just got to put it in tinfoil and hold it, and it usually works out really good. So you don't have to buy a bunch of brushes and stuff to get this done. So all I'm going to do is just dip it, let it soak it up good, and then I start in the middle and work my way back. And you can see that when you start it, it starts popping. And you don't have to put a lot of Illuma UV on here. I mean, that's the good thing about the UV resin. It actually doesn't take a lot. And you can be fishing with it in a couple hours, just depending on how long you want to leave it in the process. But you can see the colors just pop after you put this on. And I do the bill. I just do the bill last. I go up it, down. I don't want to miss, because ain't nothing, and there's no more worse a feeling than getting done, painting a bait, finishing it up, putting your top coat on, and then you've missed something. So just take your time, not in any hurry. Just get it around. I use this is usually, even this brush is a little bit bigger than what I normally use. Even though this is a big bait, I usually use a smaller brush, but I haven't painted in a while, and I haven't went out and got supplies. I didn't want to use brushes that I used a couple of months ago. Even though they probably would have been okay, because like I said, you can use the same brush over and over and over. That's the appealing part to the UV resin. And you can be fishing this bait relatively quick. I just want to make sure I've gotten all through the little crevices. These baits always have some, you know, indentions and stuff in them. You want to just make sure you get it all. But it really does. It starts coming to life when you start doing this part of it. This is the funnest part of the paint job, is actually doing the top coat, seeing what you actually came up with. So we'll spin it around, get a little bit on this bill. Just make sure you get everything. Because like I said, you don't want to take this out and then see something you've missed. That is not a good feeling. And I have done it. There's not too much I haven't messed up in this fishing lure hobby of ours. And I'm gonna let this one sit for a couple hours, and then I'll come back and we'll do a reveal and we'll finish this up. And I'm going to try to get back on my video schedule and try to have a video out on at least every Thursday night. But that's what it looks like with the UV on it. I'm going to put it a little bit. I like to do the top. Just, I don't want it to have any bubbles or indentions on it. And I will give you a trick on that too. I've got a hot plate over here on my desk, and I kind of, they say you don't have to, and you don't have to. I'm just telling you what's worked for me. If I heat it just a little bit, I've had better results with the finished product. It's not as thick like honey, and it just turns out better for me. I've had a lot less bubbles and just imperfections on the baits, especially if you're selling them, which I'm going to start selling. I've already done a little bit here lately. I hadn't done any selling in years. Been talking about it for years too, but okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it back in the box, and then I'll get back with you and show you the finished product. All right, here is the finished product. Turned out really cool. That is Illuma UV resin. So if you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you know when I have upcoming videos. And like I always say, I'll catch y'all next time. Thanks.